Hello everyone, this is Obscure Nick here with a new video, and today we are going to discuss Nickelodeon's most raw TV show, variety show from 1990 called SK8TV. This is a Patreon exclusive, so if you want to see the full video, head over to Patreon, and if you're at Patreon, welcome to the video. Let's deep dive and thrive. So I have a few disclaimers as we go into this video. I want to give a shout out to the YouTuber Kev the Ripper. This literally popped up for me out of nowhere, and of this marathon of SK8TV, an old Nickelodeon series from 1990 that everyone's forgotten about, it seems like. And I honestly just was like, okay, I'm just going to put this on and see what this is. And I just started watching, and it was so fascinating to me that I was like, I need to discuss this with my audience and see what they think of this show. And if they watched the show when it was on, and what were their best memories from this show? Did they even remember this show? Or are they just learning about the show for the first time? This is the video for you to learn about this whole show. And another disclaimer is I'm going to say I am not a skateboarder myself at all. So I have no idea about what skateboarding language is. There was a lot of very interesting things in the show that taught me a little bit about skateboarding and things I should be aware of more so. And so that was really interesting. So I learned a lot about skateboarding from the show personally, but I do admire it from afar. But anyways, let me tell you what SK8TV is all about. So SK8TV is a Nickelodeon variety show from the early 90s. It feels like a very candid reality TV show in a sense. And it was hosted by Matthew Lilard, who went by Matthew Lynn at the time, but this is Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo live action movies from the early 2000s. This was a young version of Shaggy, essentially. That's how I see him. And it was also hosted by someone named Skatemaster Tate, who is a skateboarder himself. I actually found his album on YouTube, and I was listening to it, and it's very 80s, 90s hip hop rap type album that I got from it. So it's an interesting gem. I always love underground media and lost media. So I found that very interesting to me. However, Skatemaster Tate passed away in 2012 and he's no longer with us. But I love the energy that he gave to this show. And it felt he was 30 when he did this. And yeah, this show was interviewed by Matthew and Skatemaster Tate, and it was a skateboarding variety show that featured on-set interviews as well as off-site action segments all about skateboarding. And they did also a lot of very experimental things with the show. It felt very underground, very experimental when watching this. It felt like the show Liquid television on MTV, which was from the same time period as well, but this was before liquid television was even a thing. And it had that variety show vibe to it, where it felt very experimental. You didn't know what was going to happen next, but it was like kind of like liquid television, but with the theme being skateboarding the entire time. That's just how I got from it. And this show was created and produced by the original Z-Boys, which Z-Boys was a skateboarding group from the 1970s and 80s, a famous skateboarding group that I learned about it by but the Z-Boys was Nathan Pratt and Mark Ashton Hunt, who both worked and knew the Binder Entertainment, which Binder Entertainment at the time did a show prior to this on Nick at Night called On the Television, which was a variety show, again, which was in 1989, a year prior to this. So Binder Entertainment was the production company that produced SK8TV. And it was directed by Stacy Peralta, who later went on to direct a retrospective documentary on Dogtown called Dogtown. And Z Boys had their original production designer for this as well. When they painted this pool, I actually did not know this. Something I learned from this show when watching this is about the location itself and what skateboarding pools were. And I didn't realize that skateboarding pools were actually like real pools, like real like pools you swim in and stuff. And that's something I learned from this on this very day. I never put two and two together. Again, I don't know much about skateboarding, but I learned about this as I was researching the show. And this show was filmed and built on location at the Pink Motel in Sun Valley, California. And it was in their large fish-shaped pool that was for skateboarding, and they painted it and everything, and they graffitied the whole thing, which was really cool. And it's like painting pool, like skateboarding pools are like murals you can roll over on a skateboard, which I found really cool going into this and everything. This was a show that introduced to television, and SK8TV was introducing the handheld video format. And they used multi-format film and video. They did different mediums and stuff. And it feels like a retro version of a YouTuber or a VTuber in a sense watching this show, because it reminds me of early like YouTube in the sense where people just took their cameras, their flip phone cameras, and they would just film. And this was before we even had like flip phones and technology of that nature. And it also had a vibe of not just being like liquid television experimental TV, but also like it felt like Club MTV or The Grind or one of those shows on MTV you would see at spring break, celebrating spring break, where they're all dancing and stuff. So that's the vibe of SK8TV. The show ran for 1 season and 13 episodes from July 4th, 1990 to September 29th, 1990. Aired throughout the summer on Nickelodeon. And I thought that was really cool. Also in that same year, Wild and Crazy Kids, a game show for Nickelodeon that was also outdoors and had a variety of outdoor activities, aired around this time. However, Wild and Crazy Kids had a bigger audience, and that's why it got renewed again, while SK8TV did not have a big enough audience to stay on air. The show had a lot of skating contests, talking about skateboard gear and stuff, and informing you about what skateboard gear you should wear. And it was also showing short art experimental film segments about skateboarding that were avant-garde. And I will say, watching this, it's a nice show to have in the background in the summer. However, watching this show, there were some like mild cuss words, specifically in episode 3, and I had to rewind that. I'm like, did he really just say this on kids television? However, in this time period, the most edgy thing about Nickelodeon was, I would say, that they would have some mild cuss words on some of these shows. 15 had an episode where they did have a mild cuss word in that too a few times, and even Clarissa Explains It All. But that was as intense as it got in terms of pushing the boundaries. There was no like showing too much skin. There was no innuendos or anything in this show. So it's a really safe show to watch, even for kids, in my opinion. I think this would resonate more so not really with kids, but more of an older audience, like teenagers, I would say, who are into skateboarding and things of that nature. They even went to a truck factory in one where the skateboards were made and what type of gear you needed. And honestly, it felt like watching a documentary about skateboarding as well. And it felt like a skateboarding encyclopedia for people who don't know anything about skateboarding, like myself. And it's a good introduction to skateboarding, essentially. In episode 4, they did a skateboarding contest in Hawaii, which was really interesting. Episode 5, they showed how the skating pool where this was filmed and how it was painted and everything, which was really cool as well. Also, there are some noticeable appearances of skateboarders who went on to become famous later on. A young Tony Hawk, before Tony Hawk was really famous, appeared multiple times in the show. The most controversial thing to come out of Skate TV was Mark Anthony, aka Gator, who was one of the most famous skateboarders of the 1980s at the time. However, Mark in 1991, only a few months after the show aired, in April 1991, he turned himself in for murder. And Gator is currently trying to get on parole after so many years. He was tried for parole multiple times, but he's still in prison even after 30 years, rightfully so. This was like really shocking and very left field that this only happened a few months after the show. So I wonder what possessed Mark Anthony Gator to do this. Was there something on this show that happened, or was this an outside factor from the show? Like, what possessed him to do this? But there's questions there. Just that for me, it's the timing more than anything that this was completely shocking, because Skate TV ended in September of 1990, and then in April 1991, like not even a year after the show ended. I don't know if the show was even announced as cancellation. I couldn't find anything on that by this point, or if he knew it was canceled at this point. But yeah, very, very shocking. What's also interesting is Mark Anthony turned himself in April 1991, right? Skate TV ran in reruns until September 28th, 1991 on the main Nickelodeon channel, so Skate TV was still on air, still rerunning on the channel, even when after Mark Anthony turned himself in, which is really interesting. And I wonder, I couldn't find any information on this, but I wonder if they either still aired the episodes with Mark Anthony in it, or did they pull those episodes? If anyone has information on that, let me know. However, Skate TV ended its reruns in September 28th, 1991, a year after its last episode aired in September 1990. But later, on March 1st, 1999, Nickelodeon launched a new channel called Nickelodeon Gas, which is Nickelodeon Games and Sports for Kids channel, which had all of Nickelodeon's famous game shows and sports shows, which Skate TV fit that brand because it was a sports variety show. So in 1999, I couldn't get a specific date, but during the year of 1999, Skate TV came back to TV in reruns. And it ran on Nickelodeon Gas until 2005. And this was the last time Skate TV was on TV. Skate TV had some lost media for a while. However, recently, YouTuber Kev the Ripper uploaded all the episodes, including episode 13, which was missing for quite some time from the internet. So now all the episodes can be viewed for the most part, except a few episodes cut off a few minutes, but the whole show has been mostly found. Thank you once again, Kev the Ripper on YouTube, for uploading this hidden gem. Also, if you want to watch Skate TV and get a grasp of it and watch majority of the show, you can look at Kev the Ripper's video that has a whole marathon of it, of every episode for the most part. There's a few that cut off at the end, but for the most part, the whole show is there. There's also a playlist by, I want to give a shout out to also WM45 for having kept most of Skate TV preserved and stuff over the years, and also to the Bones Brigade audio show, who has the original pilot for the show. So that's where you can watch Skate TV. And I wish it was on streaming service so I could say go watch it on streaming service, but there's no other way to watch the show except through these tapes that people have uploaded. So thank you for everyone that contributed to this. This was such a gem. I really enjoyed it. And yeah. I really enjoyed this series. This feels like a hidden gem, a hidden secret to Nickelodeon. I learned a lot about skate TV and skateboarding through this. It's a fun show. It's a kid-friendly show, I would say. And it's just an easy, fun watch. It's something I would say you put on in the background and you watch as you're doing the dishes or doing chores or something in the house. It's not too deep or anything by any means. It's very surface level skateboarding stuff that I think is a great introduction for kids or teenagers. And I don't know if Skate TV would ever come back to TV. I don't know if we're ever going to see it on Paramount Plus. It's one of the most obscure Nickelodeon shows of the 1990s. However, I am very glad to have watched this, and I would love to know your guys' thoughts on Skate TV. If you watched it, what are your fondest memories? And do you think Skate TV could be made today? And please like, subscribe, comment, and feel free to donate to my PayPal if you would like. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.